Some of the most successful people in the world, they're not out there hustling hard. Most of them don't work that much, but they're creating massive wealth. What is the difference between you and them? Nothing. It's just the way that they're thinking.
How many times have you thought about quitting your job and starting a new life? Hey, I'm Lindsay, the girl who actually did that. And now I'm on a mission to change the 9-to-5 narrative that dreading Monday and working for the weekend is normal and acceptable. My goal is to help you see your potential beyond your credentials, gain clarity on what it means to live life on your own terms, and build the confidence to go after your dream career. I'm here to prove to you that it's possible for you to do work you love, make a positive impact on the world, make even more money than you're making right now, and live a deeply fulfilling life. So let's dive in. Hello, my beautiful friend. You are in for a treat today. I had the absolute pleasure of sitting down and having this conversation with my personal coach, Taylor Tosczak. I found her on Instagram. I will leave all of her information in the show notes for you, but she is an amazing human, an amazing entrepreneur. She is a life coach, and she so perfectly integrates spirituality and thought work and manifestation and things like meditation, breath work, integrative nutrition into her coaching. And she is able to just combine all these different things in such a beautiful way. We talk about so many amazing things on this episode. We dive into manifestation and the law of attraction and really how your thoughts create your reality. We talk about how the energy behind what you do matters more than the actual things that you do. And I think this is really going to speak to you if you are an entrepreneur working for yourself. This manifests in your business in so many ways. And I actually think next week I'm going to do an entire episode just diving into that. So you do not want to miss that. We talk about how we can hold emotion and hold trauma in our body and how to actually release that and move through it. We talk about entrepreneurship and the fear of the unknown and the fear of failure when you're thinking about quitting your job and starting your own business. And we also talk about how life coaching can help you see your blind spots and really create the life that you're meant to be living, a life and business and career that you are just wildly obsessed with and in love with. Like I said, she is my personal life coach. It's been amazing working with her. She has an amazing story of her own. If you want to find her on Instagram, her handle is Taylor the Life Coach. She has her own podcast where I believe she'll be rebroadcasting this interview on her podcast as well, which is the Low Vibes to Love Vibes podcast. So you can go check that out. This is going to be an amazing, amazing episode for you. I can't wait for you to dive in and listen. And if you feel like you do need coaching, you want continued support, you want to dive deeper into your own life, into your own business, and see how you can use the power of life coaching to help you transform and create the life of your dreams, you can apply to get on the wait list for my private coaching at lindsayhansen.com/apply. And I will also leave that link in the show notes as well. So get ready for an amazing episode. Dive in, check out Taylor on all the socials, and I can't wait to hear what you think.
I know that you work a lot with like spirituality and sort of like the staying in alignment, manifestation, integrative nutrition, all of that side, as well as like the thought work side of life coaching, which I feel like from what I've seen in the industry, it's like people are either one or the other. And like I've seen some people who are like, so like they just do thought work and they think like manifestation is like just woo woo and like not real. And I also work with accountants who are very analytical. And so I think on one hand, like the whole like spiritual manifestation aspect might not resonate as much with them, but I think it's also so connected. And so I think the work that you're doing is really unique. And I also try to integrate both in my own work. And I've seen both aspects in my own life so powerfully. And so I think being able to connect those for people would be really cool. And I also think like the women in my audience, even though they're accountants, they do have a little bit of that just like intuitive side to them. And so I think it will really resonate with them, because the reason why they're feeling stuck in their job, feeling stuck in their quarter life crisis is because they can tell that something's out of alignment, or else they wouldn't feel stuck, right? It's just this intuitive sense of like, I'm not on the right path, something is wrong, and I need to make a change. And so I think being able to kind of connect all aspects of this and see how that can be applied to someone who's like stuck in their quarter life crisis will be just really cool. A really exciting conversation to have.
Excited. Yeah, I love that so much. And thank you for like expressing that, like even recognizing the noticing between the two, right? Because we could have one without the other, and they both can work on their own, but they also both combine so beautifully and support each other in such a powerful way. And like I've gone all in on both, and I've recognized within my own life is that you're way better off having the two, because you can do all the trust, you can do all of that, but at the same time, if your mindset and your thoughts aren't on point, it's going to be really hard to actually manifest what it is that you're wanting, right? And then in the same aspect, if we're just doing the thought work and we're being constantly in control of our thoughts and being like, you know what, like I am powerful, I am powerful, I am powerful, all those things, and like doing the affirmation side of things, sometimes we can become like manic manifestors, and we can try to have too much control over a situation that we don't allow for like divine inspiration or all of those little like intuitive hits to actually come through. So it's finding the balance between, you know, trusting your intuition, trusting your inner guide, and then also being mindful and being aware of the thought work that you're having on a constant day-to-day basis. That makes sense?
Yeah, I'm excited. And if you're listening to this and you're one of my accountants and you're like, this is not going to be for me, this is too spiritual for me, like stick with it, because I'm telling you, there's so many practical ways that you can apply this in your life and like see it happen. And we're for sure going to give you some of those throughout the podcast too. So don't turn it off if you are like, this is going to be too out there for me, because it's not.
I love that so much, because it's like, you are like, we're human beings, right? That's the whole thing. But it's like, we also need to have that trust that it's more than just your physical body, right? Like if you've ever had something, like there's this quote that I heard that was along the lines of, once you recognize your true power, you'll start to realize that there's no coincidence and you are the one who's in control, right? And when you start to see things happening for you and it's like, oh, I actually have that control. Oh, I can actually create my reality. It's so beautiful. And to look at it from like a practical standpoint, it's like, there is evidence, and you can look into this in your own way, but there is evidence that your thoughts do literally create your reality, because thoughts are vibrations, right? Those thoughts create vibrations in your body. When you think about something, it's going to create a feeling in your body. And as humans, we always act based on either creating or avoiding a feeling. So what we're thinking about, that's going to create those feelings. And then, as I mentioned, those feelings are going to lead you to taking or not taking action in your life as well. So let's just say, for example, you have this like this intuitive knowing that you are made for more and that you do want to do more. And you're like, I'm craving something bigger than where I'm at right now. Like I don't feel 100% fulfilled. I don't feel that joy anymore. And that creates that excitement, right? Because you're like, ooh, that's exciting. There's something else out there. But then sometimes we can have these like sabotaging thoughts that come in, that it's like, wait, you're not good enough, you don't know what you're doing, and all that like self-doubt comes in, and then that brings us back to the same place that we were in. So we don't even realize this stuff. Most of it is unconscious, right?
Yeah.
And it's like our unconscious mind actually drives like 95% of our behaviors, right? We don't even think about that stuff. It's just this autopilot playing in the background. And your unconscious mind has been working for so damn long. I like to think that one of the sayings that I learned when I went into like early childhood development is like, when you're in that age of like 0 to 7, you are a walking subconscious sponge, and everything that you are like seeing, you're taking that in as your beliefs about the world. So it's like your brain is this computer system, and everything that you see, hear, feel, you're filing that into this computer system. And it's like, all of this is true about life. And if at any point in your childhood there was something where someone said something along the lines of like, you're not good enough, or you don't know what you're doing, or anything that made you feel that way, that's going to show up later on in adult life, unless you're actually aware of those unconscious limiting beliefs.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I was just thinking about this earlier, and thinking back to like how I ended up in accounting, because everyone I talk to who's like, they're in accounting, they hate their job. And I always ask them like, okay, how did you end up there? And it's like, we all have such similar stories of basically we listened to other people, and like, we knew that we weren't going to like it, but we did it anyways. And so I was thinking back to like my childhood, and my mom, I mean, I think most of the adults in my life weren't necessarily doing work that they loved. And like, I wasn't really around anyone who was an entrepreneur, so I didn't really know that this was even in like an option growing up. But specifically, my mom always was in jobs that she hated. And like, she would come home from work every day, complain about her job. Like, all of our dinner conversations 99% of the time were like her talking about how miserable her day was and how much she hates her job. And that was so normal to me that when I think back to like choosing my major to be accounting in college, for example, I literally never even considered that I could do something that I enjoyed for my career. Like, it wasn't even, when I was choosing my major, I was thinking of like, all right, what am I good at? Like, what would pay well? What would be a stable job? It was never, what do I want? Like, what would I actually enjoy? What am I passionate about? Like, those weren't even things that I was thinking about when I was choosing my career. And I was like, that's so crazy. And it really goes back to just my childhood and all of the stories that I heard from my mom. And then I just internalized all that to believe that you're supposed to hate your job when you grow up.
Yeah.
And so once I was actually in it and realized that that wasn't the life I wanted for myself, and I was able to rewrite that story, that's really when everything changed. And that's the work that I get to do now with my clients, is figuring out all those beliefs and all those stories that you're living in that aren't actually yours, and getting to rewrite those and realizing that you deserve to love the work that you do every day, that you're good enough, that you deserve to make a lot of money doing something you're passionate about, and that all of that is possible for you, but it won't be until you believe that it is.
100%. And I love that. And I think the work that you do is so beautiful and so powerful and so impactful. So thank you for sharing your light with the world as well. And I love that you mentioned stories, because that's literally what they are. They're just these stories that we tell ourselves on a repeat basis. And the beliefs, like literally all a belief is a thought that goes on repeat, right? It's a thought that you've thought so damn long that it became true to you. And our brains are literally looking for this evidence as to why something's true. So like you mentioned, when you're a kid, you notice that your mom was always complaining about her job, and like, you have to work hard to make money, you have to put in the time, like, you receive value for your time. That's what a lot of people have, this belief. And when you're surrounded by more than that, and you see people in like the real world as well, you'll see people working at like these minimum wage jobs or something like that, like settling for lower than they could create, that is reiterating that same belief for you too, where it's like, oh, you have to hustle to make money. You have to work hard to make money. But it's like, what if that's just the opposite, you know? What if it is just the opposite of what is true? What if you can find a job doing what you love and creating massive wealth from doing something that sparks so much joy in your soul? And one of the things that I love to quote all the time is that abundance follows alignment. And it's like, when you have that joy and you have that ease and you have that bliss within yourself, it's so much easier to show up to what you love and feel really freaking good about it.
Yeah, and it's really, I've even now, like, I still notice all of those underlying beliefs showing up. And I think I messaged you about this the other day, but I realized I had this belief that I still had that belief that like work is supposed to be hard and you need to like hustle and work hard in order to earn money and basically deserve to be paid. And so even though I'm all about doing work you love, and like my whole business is focused around that, I still had this belief that it has to feel hard and that you have to, whether either like put in a lot of hours or put in a lot of effort. And so I noticed that I was making things in my business harder than they needed to be in order for me to feel like I deserved to be making money. And I would like always either keep changing my programs and adding more to them, or underpricing my programs and feeling like, well, I'm not doing enough. I'm not giving enough to my clients for it to be worth this certain investment. And it shows up in so many ways. And for entrepreneurship in general, any of those beliefs that you have in yourself and in your personal life are going to manifest in your business in some way, which has been crazy. And entrepreneurship, I think, is the greatest personal development journey that you can go on, because it's just going to bring up all of your limiting beliefs so like quickly and so strongly.
Honestly. And it's like, yeah, the fastest ways to personal mastery is to go in and create your own business, because your inner really, like, your external world is a reflection of your internal world. And if you have all those limiting beliefs, well, it's going to be really hard to show up for your business as well. And I love that you mentioned that you realize that belief, because I think that's where the most power comes in, is when you do recognize and then you have this opportunity to change it. And I even had that experience a couple days ago as well. Like, I had just enrolled into like a high level mastermind. So this was like stepping way out of my comfort zone, more than I ever have before. And every time that we do that, it's like that new level, new devil, right? You step onto a new level. Well, new old stories and beliefs are going to come up for you. And that's when they're all being faced. And it's like, okay, you're leveling up. Here's the old stories that you're going to have to work through at this point. And some beliefs that came up for me, I didn't even know they were in there. And I'm like, oh my God, that is so crazy. Like, how have I been living like this for so long? And it reflected in my personal life, in my business, in all areas. And now bringing the awareness to it, I had like a light bulb moment, and I'm like, wow, this is going to be a game changer for me. And it just changed my energy around the whole thing as well. And just bringing that alignment back into my life and my business, it's so powerful. And it's like recognizing the power within yourself. When you see those stories and you see those beliefs, you actually get to ask yourself, like, is this something that I want to carry around with me, or do I want to let this go? And asking yourself, like, is it even mine? You know?
Yeah, I know. I love, like, coaching is so powerful because it can be so hard to recognize what those beliefs are, because they're on such a subconscious level that like it can take a lot to bring them to the surface. And I think we can't always do that ourselves. So I want to take it back a little bit. So like for people who haven't really been introduced to like manifestation and the spirituality side of things, could you just sort of briefly explain what that whole process is and how this is related to life coaching?
Absolutely. Yeah. So essentially what manifestation is it's an idea that became real in real life, right? And we're all manifestors. Like we are all creators, but a lot of the time we doubt our creations, right? And so everything that you have in your life right now, you have created. Everything that you have around you, you've brought it into life, you've made this, you've brought it to you in some way. And for some people that's hard to hear, for some it's empowering to hear. And it just depends on the level of consciousness that you have around your creations. And when I say consciousness, that's like the awareness factor, right? So we talk about the unconscious mind, which is this part that's not really working consciously, like you're not thinking about those things, whereas your conscious mind, you're thinking about what you're thinking about. So if you are intentionally trying to manifest something and bring it into your life, you're going to think of this idea, and let's just say you want a new client, for example. If you're an accountant and you want a new client, and for you, if you want that to actually come into your real world life, you have to have this belief that it's possible for you. And I'll use a client of mine for an example because she is an accountant, just funny enough. But when we first started working together, she had been so overwhelmed by her business. And she was like, I don't think I can take on clients. I have way too much stuff going on. I can't even take care of myself. And she had, originally she came to me because she was stressed. Like she was highly stressed. And once we got to a lot of her subconscious beliefs, it was easy for her to start attracting these clients. She had ended up getting about 40 new clients within a 2-month range. And it was like, boom,
What?
boom, boom. Yeah, insane. She didn't take all of them on, but it was just like all of these people started to come to her because she was like, you know what? It is possible for me. It is possible for me to bring this stuff into my life. And once you break through that, all of this stuff just starts to show up on your path in your favor. And where your focus goes, energy flows. And thoughts are energy. Around us that we see is energy. And I think that's where my beliefs about spirituality come in, right? Because we are all energetic beings. And this can be on an emotional level, right? Like those emotions that you feel, those are also like vibrations, energy in your body, because you can physically feel them. And the way that you're feeling, that's what's going to attract things to you. So if you're feeling like you're tired, low energy, out of alignment, low vibe, that's what's going to attract more of those experiences into your life, because the law of attraction states that like attracts like. And that's one of the most commonly known universal laws is, like attracts like. You are in this state, you're going to attract more of that. Whereas if you're in the high vibe state, which is like, you feel really good, you have that high energy, you feel excited, empowered, confident, all the things, it's really easy to attract more of those experiences into your life. Because basically what I mean by this is the universe is giving you everything that you want. You might not be thinking about what you want though. So that's where we have to bring in the conscious manifestation. And when you focus on something that you want and you actually believe that it's possible for you, sometimes what we need to do is we need to step into a new version of ourselves. That version of ourselves that is not living in those old stories, not living in those old beliefs, not living in those old patterns and behaviors. The version of us that is maybe not living out our highest potential. Like we all have completely unlimited potential to our lives, and you can see it around you, right? Some of the most successful people in the world, they're not out there hustling hard. Most of them don't work that much, but they're creating massive wealth. What is the difference between you and them? Nothing. It's just the way that they're thinking. That's it. Which is so cool. When you change your thoughts and you change your energy, you will quite literally change your life. And the way that I saw it come into play for me was someone had asked me a while ago that was like, what is the difference between you not having clients? Because there was like a 2-month period where I did not have clients. Like I didn't have one client, and then made a shift internally. And then all of a sudden I had 15 clients, and they were like, what was the difference? And I really thought about that, because I'm like, we can have all the like strategies and stuff, but it was all energy for me. It was all the
Mm-hmm.
way I was internally feeling. And once I got into that state of what I call alignment, which for me, alignment is like feeling good, living intentionally, living on purpose, going on the path that feels good for you. When you get into that state, people can feel that energy. They're drawn to that energy. They're drawn to your excitement. And it's like, I want some of that. I want to experience that in my life too. So that's
Yeah.
where that comes from, right? People can feel the passion. People can feel the good energy. So if you're bringing this place of, oh, I don't feel good, I hate my job, I don't like what I'm doing, you're going to be experiencing that experience all over again. Whereas if you can shift and maybe even just bring a practice of focusing on something that's positive, that's going to shift your perspective. And that's what's going to create more of that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. And there were so many good things that you said that I want to dive into.
Yeah.
But it's so true that really your thoughts and your beliefs are going to create your reality. And I think I saw that throughout my whole life on sort of a smaller scale of just noticing that a lot of people would get stressed out about things. And I've always been pretty good at not letting like small shit bother me, like not getting stressed out at work, even when I was a tax accountant during tax season. And like, obviously there were times when I'm stressed, and there's still plenty of times where I am stressed or I get frustrated or I get angry. But like for me and one of my coworkers experiencing the same busy season, like we experienced those very differently. And for one of us, it was a really stressful time. And for someone else, it could have been a completely different experience. And it's never the circumstance itself. It's always just your thoughts about it that determine basically your reality. And I think a lot of people don't recognize that step from like the experience and their thoughts and then their interpretation and their feelings about it. And they just think like, oh, I have a lot of work to do, therefore I'm stressed out. And that's just the natural way things work. But you actually get to decide if you want to feel stressed out, and you can change the way you're thinking about it and literally change your experience from being something that's stressful to being something that is calm, or whatever you want it to be, really.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so funny because I was literally like just talking about that on my story today. And, you know, I use this analogy of like the movie theater analogy, where it's like you have two different people and they both go to the movie. One of them watches the movie, they come out, it was the best movie that they've ever seen. They tell all their friends about how amazing it was. The other one comes out and they talk about how they hated it, they want a refund, and they start telling everybody like what a shitty experience it was for them. And it's not the movie, but it's the way that that person is experiencing it. So it all comes back to the way that we're thinking about that. Like the way that you're thinking about whatever that circumstance is, like the circumstance is neutral. That has no meaning to it. It's like traffic, other people's actions, the weather, all those things. You have no control over any of those things. And your thoughts about that isn't actually going to change that circumstance. All it's going to do is put you into stress, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, how is it that you want to look at that situation instead? You know, what kind of experience do you want to have? A lot of people complain about the cold weather. You know, I'm in Canada and a lot of the time it's like, oh, it's so cold, this sucks. And then it's like, someone's going to find complete joy in that situation. They're going to look at it and be like, wow, I get to go skiing, I get to go snowboarding, fishing, all the things. And it's like, we literally create our own experience of life. So we can choose to find joy in those little things, in those big things, or we can look at all the things that we really don't like about it. Regardless of the circumstance, nobody will ever be able to change our feelings but ourselves.
Yeah. And I think it also, when you were talking about the law of attraction, I mean, it's all so related to thought work. And I feel like it all ends up becoming sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's really what it means when we say like your thoughts create your reality, because if you're in a place, if you're like in that low vibe place of like, maybe you're just having a bad, you know how like when you have a bad day, it seems like there's like just one thing after another that keeps happening. And it's what you were talking about, the law of attraction, where when that's the state you're in, you're going to attract more of those things. And then it's very easy to jump and like use all of those things as evidence that this is just how life is. And like when you're in that negative state and you're believing that like I'm going to have a bad day and like life is just shitty, and then a bunch of shitty things happen to you because that's the energy you're in and that's what you're attracting. And then you take all those things that happened as evidence of my belief is correct that life is shitty. But really, you're creating that by staying in that energetic state that you're in and attracting more of that into your life. Because it's not only just like the energy spirituality of it, but it's also when that's your belief, that's what you're going to focus on. And so even if good things happen, you're only going to see the bad things.
Exactly. Yeah, like it's literally where your focus goes, energy flows too. So where we're focusing all of that, that's what's going to be recreated. Regardless of what's actually happening around us, it totally depends on what we're choosing to look at. So one of the practices that I love to use like every morning to set my intention for the day is to do a gratitude practice, right? Like to actually like look at what you do have, like waking up in the morning and being like, I'm so thankful that I have a bed to sleep in and I have a roof over my head and I have a job that I get to go to. And, you know, thinking of all of those things, which will shift your perspective to focus on the good instead of waking up and being like, oh, I slept through my alarm. Oh my God, all these emails. I got to go to work. I got to go to traffic, right? Because it's like we really get to wake up and decide, what am I wanting to focus my energy on today? And you can do that first thing in the morning, just taking that second to really put your intention and attention into something that makes you feel good. And even if it's just slowing down for a second and taking a big deep breath in and just bringing that present awareness, that is so powerful.
Yeah. And I think going back to what you were talking about, when it all kind of starts with your belief, I think that's so important because, I mean, like I was saying, it ends up becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy, but everything that you want is available to you, but it will never be until you believe that it is, you know, and you can't create the life that you want if you don't believe it's possible. So any steps that you take from that place of not truly believing that you can have what you want for whatever reason, for whatever limiting beliefs there are that are inside of you, it's not going to get you to where you really want to be. And I mean, I see this applied in my coaching where like if you don't believe that you can start your own business or you don't believe you can do work you love, then obviously you're not going to look for ways to do work you love, and you're going to keep jumping from one job you hate to another job you hate. But I've also seen this so much in trying to build my business, and it's like the tactics and the strategies, like you need those, but they're never by themselves going to be enough if you don't have that belief and that energy behind it. And I've seen so many times where it's like, okay, I have all of the marketing strategies I need. I have all the sales strategies that I need, but I'm not getting clients. And it's like, the reason is because I didn't truly believe I could get the clients. It wasn't that I didn't have the right sales page. It wasn't that I didn't have the right like content. It's that under it all, I didn't truly believe that I could have the clients for whatever reason. And until I shifted that energy and overcame that limiting belief and got into the right energetic state, that's when the clients come to me. And so I think, especially just because I work with accountants, that's a lot of times the step that we tend to skip because we think we just need the logical and the analytical and the concrete tactics. But it's so important that you work on the underlying beliefs first, because that's what's going to drive everything else. And I think you can create what you want in your life from a place of just believing you can have it without knowing how, but you'll never create it by knowing the how without believing you can have it, if that makes sense.
100% it does. And that's where we get so stuck, like in the how, and then we don't know how because it's something that we've never done before, right? So that's where we stay stuck. But if you focus on your vision and like that big picture and like, this is what I want, this is what I want to do, you're going to start living your life as you're going towards that vision. And like, you know, how would I show up if that were true for me? How would I want to behave and think and feel if that were my life right now? And that's where I love to bring the spirituality side into things, because the universe is always supporting our desires. Like, we are always 100% supported in everything that we want, and we can have anything. We can be, do, have whatever our heart desires. But if we don't have that belief behind it, the universe is going to match that and be like, oh, she doesn't think that she can have it. Well, we're not going to give it to her, right? But if you're like, I believe with all of my heart that I can be a successful accountant, a successful business owner, a successful entrepreneur, well, hell yeah, the universe is going to support that. It's going to feel that energy and just be like, okay, we're going to start lining up the cards and making things happen to serve you, because we're all 100% whole and complete and worthy. When we come into this world 100% whole and complete and worthy, but it's that childhood and societal conditioning that takes us so far away from our truth. And like, we put all of these layers onto us where it's like, you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you know, you don't matter, you don't deserve success, money is hard, you have to work hard. And all of that is like glued on top of us, keeping us in this place of like, this is all I know, this is all I know how to do. But as you start to like unravel those layers of beliefs and conditioning, you get back to your core, and then you get back to the truth of who you are. And then that's when you get to start showing up in that way. So beliefs, you know, the belief of life is that you're 100% worthy of success, and abundance is your birthright. Like, you came here to be a creator. You came here to live and love and learn and become your highest version of you, and expressing yourself through whatever it is that you want to. You know, for each one of us, it's so unique and so different. And the way I like to look at it is like, you chose to be an accountant, and then you realized that wasn't for you, right? And then you found your passion in something else. And the reason that you get to help people is because you had that experience, right? Like, we all go through these phenomenal experiences all throughout our life, and that is what makes us who we are. All the stuff, like, you came into this world with a gift that's so unique to you, and you get to use this world as your playground to express those gifts. Some people love connecting with others. Some people love art. Some people love working behind a computer, and some people love working with numbers, you know, but there's no rule book that says you have to settle for something that you're working for. That's just a belief. And beliefs,
so true.
Bullshit. A lot of the time beliefs are bullshit. Like I said, most of the time they're not even ours. Most of the time they're not even ours.
They're not ours, they're lies, they're bullshit. Like, all of the limiting beliefs that you have about why you can't have whatever you want in your life is a lie. It's a story, and you get to choose a different one.
Yeah. So it's like, what is the story that you want to tell yourself instead? And that's what I love to bring into play. It's like, okay, well, if this isn't true, what do you want to tell yourself instead? You know, how could I show up to this? And as you start to show up to it differently, that's when those beliefs will begin to surface, right? And that's why it's so damn important to have that support and that life coach to really guide you and help you uncover those things. And we don't see what we don't see, and we don't know what we don't know. And that's like, having that coach is like, that's a bullshit belief right there. And then you're called out on your shit, and then you're able to actually move past it. I swear a lot of stories.
No, that's fine. I do too.
Oh
but
God.
It's so true. Yeah, it's so true. And I think that's really the power of coaching, is because, like, if we have been believing that story and that belief and that thought for literally our whole lives, we might not even realize that it's just a story, like, because we so firmly just think that it's the truth and we don't ever question it. Like, for example, when I'm talking to an accountant who hates their job and they're like, something that most people tell me is, if I do something I love, I'll make less money. Like if I switch into something that I love, I'm going to have to take a pay cut. And it's just like this belief that so many people and so many accountants have. And I'm always able to just be like, what if that's not true? Like, because it's not, it's a lie, but it's such a deeply held belief that so many people don't even question it. They're just like, oh, well, I know if I do something I love, I'll make less money. And so then they're like creating a plan around that. And I'm like, what if you could do what you love and make more money? And it's just like, what? That's an option? Like, yeah, that's an option.
It always is an option. And a lot of it, it literally all comes back to our beliefs. And I had that conversation with a client a while ago because she's been wanting to make a career shift as well. And, but her story was, you have to work hard to make money. You have to get a good job to make money, and that is the story that her parents had told to her. And that became her truth. That became something that she believed about the world. And then as she changed that story, she started looking in a different direction. And now she's going to school to become something that she absolutely loves and is excited to do. And that way she's going to make money and she's going to be happy while doing it.
Yes. I think that's a huge belief just from the people that I talk to. And I think in like the corporate and accounting world in general is like, you have to work hard. Like you have to work hard to make money. You have to, have that like stable corporate job in order to make good money. But the other side of it is money doesn't actually make you happy. Like that's also why you're feeling stuck, is because, okay, you did the work you thought you needed to do to make good money, but now you hate your job and the money's not worth it either. So even if it were true that you had to make less money to do something you love, you still get to decide whether you want to do something you love instead. That's still an option, And I think we hold ourselves back so much from literally these lies and these like bullshit beliefs that we have without even realizing like you still get to choose ultimately what you want your life to be at the end of the day.
Always. Yeah. Like you have full choice into do whatever it is that you want to do. And it's like, do you want to live to work or do you want to work to live? Right. And for some people, it's like they want to just work just to live. But some people want to like actually do what they love. And that's up to each person. And I think it's so powerful because you get to make that decision and you get to make the decision to rewrite that story, rewrite that belief, and then actually go in the direction that you want to.
I love it. So let's talk a little bit about, I'm really interested, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but tell me more about how this all connects to your physical body as well, and like how this all can manifest literally in your body.
Yeah. So like I was saying earlier, your emotional body is stored within your physical body, right? So, when you have a stressful experience or something like that, you feel that in your body. And then if we don't allow ourselves to actually release that and move through it, we're going to hold that experience in our body again until we allow ourselves to actually move through it. And what happens a lot is we have these emotional experiences in our childhood where we're told something or something happens to us, and that becomes this carried emotion in our body. And then anytime something similar comes up, we end up feeling that same feeling. And because that experience brought us such emotional, physical pain, we're going to end up recreating that story over and over and over again. So something that I love to talk about that I'm learning right now, and I'm a student to, is like somatic movement and like releasing through your body. So the 3 ways of doing that are through breath, sound, and movement, right? So you could move it out with your breath. And something that I really like to do if I'm ever getting anxiety is to move it through my breath, because anxiety is also just an emotional feeling, right? Most of the time it's sprung up through overthinking or anticipating the future. So if you can bring yourself back to the present moment with your breath, you're able to calm yourself down physically again. Sound is really good too. And we were talking about this earlier, like if you had an experience that you weren't able to express your anger or express your frustration and you held it in, so that's something that is like held within inside of our body. So if you can actually like yell it out or scream it out or cry it out and just make that sound, we always feel better after a cry, right? Like you always feel better on the outside of it. But if we push that down, all of those emotions are getting stored inside of our body. And that's what creates a lot of like tension and disease and like even more physical pain as well. And there's this book that I'm reading right now that's called Your Mind Speaks Your Body. And it's really good because she talks about how a lot of our physical manifestations or physical ailments, not all, but a lot of them are manifestations of stored emotional pain, whether it be from yourself, your parents, or ancestral lineage. That could be passed down generational. And we can actually create these physical symptoms of something in our mind, right? So there's this whole thing that goes on about, you know, there's people who can make themselves sick because they don't want to go and do something. And there's actually been studies done on it, right? Like, I don't want to go to work. I'm so stressed out when I get there. And then they end up making themselves sick so they don't actually have to go to work. So it shows how powerful our minds actually are. And the third one is movement. And it's because there's so many like hormones and endorphins released when we're actually physically moving our bodies. So one of my favorite ways to express emotion is through ecstatic dance, right? So if you're ever feeling like you're in a stagnant energy and there's stuff stuck in your body and you're just like in this blah state, moving your body and like getting that energy out of you, it's going to raise your vibration as well. And whenever animals go through like traumatic experiences, immediately after they'll shake themselves out. Like they'll physically shake themselves and then that moves the trauma out of their body. But we don't do that as humans. Like we just are like we sit with that emotion and that emotion manifests and it gets even worse. And then we keep piling all this stuff on. So a lot of the work that I do is unraveling those things and allowing ourselves to process and allowing ourselves to feel so that we can actually move into what we want to and have that self-awareness to feel really good. And when that stuff comes in, we allow ourselves to work through it and then we move forward instead of just staying stuck in that same place all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of crazy what you said about animals. I didn't know that, but it also, like, I feel like this, I can just see this all the time. Like, and I think because as a society, we kind of, like, we tend to hold our emotions in and we have this stigma around, like, literally crying, for example, where, like, you don't, like crying is a sign of weakness or whatever bullshit thought that we have about that. And I really, this past year, have just kind of embraced that and been like, no, crying is a way for me to release that emotion and like help me move through whatever I'm dealing with quicker. Mm-hmm. And so I probably cried more this past year than I like have in like the last 10 years combined, because I don't hold it in anymore. And I don't make it mean anything about me, you know, like I don't have any shame about, I've cried on my Instagram stories. Like I literally don't care anymore. I'm like, I have emotion and I need to express it and I need to release it or it's going to just stay there. And I think it ends up showing up in other ways in your life if you don't release it. Like it's going to come out at some point.
Oh yeah, exactly. And you see this a lot in relationships as well, right? Like we these old things from past experiences, and if we don't allow ourselves to process through it, we're going to take it out on someone else, you know, and you'll be something and then all of a sudden your whole life comes out in an experience because one thing, it's like poking a balloon and then all of a sudden, boom, everything comes out. And it's like, okay, I wasn't ready for that. So We need to be responsible for our emotions and our energy and recognize that nobody can make us feel any kind of way, and we have to allow ourselves to feel the feelings fully.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's huge, taking responsibility for your own emotions, and which is also a beautiful thing, because once you realize that you really are in control of how you feel, I just think so much of the stress and anxiety that we feel comes from not believing that you have control over your emotions. Because anything you do, I think you said this earlier, but anything you do is to either create or avoid a certain emotion.
Yeah.
And so when you don't realize that you have control over your emotions because you have control over your thoughts, then you do so many things to try to avoid negative emotions, because you think that they come from your circumstances, you think that they come from other people. And so you're trying to avoid certain things, stop certain things from happening that you have no control over. That's where stress comes from. And I think that's where so much anxiety comes from, is trying to basically control situations that you can't control.
Yeah.
And it's so pointless.
It is, because that, like, you're so right about that. You hit the nail on the head. Is we try to control circumstances when the truth is that the only thing that we ever have control over is our thoughts. And those thoughts do create feelings. And if we allow ourselves to just be like, okay, this situation, how do I want to look at it? How do I want to feel about this? And then you can actually reframe your thoughts to change the way that you feel and change your whole experience of life too. And that way we don't have to stress, we don't have to suffer, we don't have to go through all these experiences that are completely overwhelming and unnecessary.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of fear comes from too. Like, people who hear my story and the fact that I quit my accounting job to start my own business, a lot of people have said to me, like, I would never have, like, I don't feel confident enough to do that. I would never have the balls to do that. People have said that to me a lot. And really, I think the fears that people have, it's like the fear of the unknown, the fear of failure. Like, I had that too, but I knew that no matter what happened, I was still in control of how I felt. And it's, in a way, it's like I have my own back. And like, I know that even if this didn't work out the way that I had pictured in my head, if I quit my job and tried to start a business and it failed, which I have a lot of, like, the definition of failure is also up to you. Like, it's just your belief. But I also knew that no matter what happened,
that you're
like,
safe.
the only reason that you're scared of failure is because of how you think you're going to feel. Like, how you think you're going to feel if you're not making money, how you think you're going to feel if you have an unsuccessful business, and what you're making all of those things mean about you. Yeah. And I just didn't make any of those things mean anything about me. Like, if I try this and I make no money and I fall on my face, that's okay. Because I still have me, you know? And so, yeah, even though all those fears come up, I think my ability to recognize that I didn't have to listen to them, because I had that voice in my head when I decided to put in my 2 weeks. I remember literally getting a pit in my stomach and hearing that voice in my head being like, you can't do that. Like, that's scary. That's not safe. Don't do it. And I had to just be like, I hear you, but I'm not going to listen to you. And I think that ability to observe your own thoughts and realize that you don't have to believe them and you don't have to listen to them is where your life is going to start to change.
100%. I love that so much. And it's so true. Like, fear is there to protect you, right? It's there because it wants to keep you safe, but the fear isn't always accurate. And to bring the, like, psychology factor into it too, is like, we have that fight or flight brain that is like, this is safe, this is not safe. And if this is not safe, the fear is going to come up. All of those overthinking thoughts are going to come up as well. And it's because a lot of the people in our world say that you need to have a safe job to be safe. But the thing is literally no guarantee, because people get fired from their jobs all the time. You know, businesses go bankrupt, all those things happen. So why not be there with yourself? Why not create that knowledge and that trust within yourself? And I feel like as an entrepreneur, you find resourcefulness, because it's like, I got to make the money now. It's up to no one but me. So then you find this willingness to show up and like go and do all these things in a different way, that like, if you're an employee, you're dependent on someone else. But if you're an entrepreneur, you're dependent upon yourself, which is so powerful. So powerful. And like when I quit my job too, it was like so many fears came up, all these limiting beliefs came up, all these stories came up. But the thing is that fear, you just get better at pushing through it every time. And it's like, you know, it's just a feeling. That's all it is. And a lot of people are afraid of feelings because we think that they're never going to go away. But it's because we judge the feeling and we say, I shouldn't feel this way. I shouldn't feel this way. I should be happy all the time. But when you actually allow yourself to like sit with it and just say like, oh, I see you. Thanks for sharing. And then it eventually goes away. It's not there.
Yeah.
It's just a feeling.
Oh, that's so funny. But yeah, I literally, I like say that to myself all the time whenever some like ridiculous fear or limiting belief comes up, and I'm just like, oh, okay, I see you, but we're not going to do that today.
Yeah. Thank you, but no thank you. I don't want to listen to this story because it's not serving me. And I think that should be like the biggest takeaway from today is like, you know, don't listen to all of your thoughts, because they're not true unless you make them true. They're not, not everything that goes through your head is true. And remembering that we have that voice of ego, we have that voice of fear that tends to be the loudest, but we also have that voice of intuition, that inner knowing that tends to be the first one that comes up, where it feels expansive and exciting and like, oh my gosh, I want to do that. And then ego comes in right away and it's like, no, you can't do this because this. So following the first initial feeling and going with that, because that's the voice of your highest self. That's the voice of your purpose and your potential, and like really going and leaning into that and seeing and proving to yourself that you are so much more capable than you're giving yourself credit for.
Yeah, I love that. And I always come back to that example of when I decided to quit my job, because I literally felt that happen in the moment. The thought came into my head of, what if I put in my 2 weeks tomorrow? And I felt like so excited, so expansive, so like, holy shit, that's what I need to do. And then immediately I got a pit in my stomach, and I literally could hear my ego being like, no, we can't do that. It's not safe. And telling me all the reasons why I can't quit my job, and it's not the right time, and like all the bullshit that comes up. And I got to recognize that and make the choice not to listen to it and to listen to my intuition instead. And that's really just, I think, came from the months and years that I had put in up to that point of really focusing on my own personal development and doing this work and getting to a point where I was able to observe my own thoughts and recognize them and choose the ones that I wanted to believe and the ones I wanted to listen to, and the ones that I knew were just fear and lies and limiting beliefs, and be able to put those aside.
I love that. And so powerful, right? And that's the path to freedom too.
Life coaching is the key, you guys. It's always the answer.
Find yourself a life coach and change your life. I love it.
So true. I was talking to one of my clients the other day, and I was like, I think we should all be assigned a life coach at birth, and like, we would all just be living amazing lives.
Oh my God, honestly. Yeah. And it's so cool. Like, you know, I think sometimes we underestimate it, because a lot of us have this thing like, I got to do it by myself. But when you ask for help and you're willing to be like, you know what, there's someone out there who sees my blind spots and can help me get back to my truth to create the life that I want to, that is so damn powerful. And like, I've seen these phenomenal transformations that my clients have gone through, and it's just like, wow, like, how is that even real, you know?
Yeah, and I love that you said that, because I feel like there is this misconception and like this hesitance to ask for help and to hire a coach. And we feel like it's a lot of times we can feel like that's us like giving up, or us not thinking that we can do it on our own and like asking for help. But the thing is, as a life coach, the work that I do is to help you get even more connected to your truth. So it's not getting further away from yourself, it's getting even more connected to yourself when you work with a coach.
Exactly. It's like helping you step into the truth of who you are so that you can actually live in your highest potential, live as who you want to be. And it's finding that like strength that's inside of you. It's just getting all the stuff and the noise out that's been sitting on the surface for way too long.
All right, my love. Did you love this episode? Are you as obsessed with it as I am? I was so glad I got to sit down with Taylor and do this. It was such an amazing conversation, and we will definitely do it again in the future. But I want to know what really resonated with you from this episode. What stood out the most? What was mind-blowing for you? If you could slide into my DMs on Instagram and let me know, or take a screenshot, put it on your story, tag me at Lindsay M. Hansen, tag Taylor at Taylor the Life Coach, and let us know what you think. If you do want to get on the wait list for my private coaching, you can do that at lindsayhansen.com/apply. As always, I appreciate you for tuning in. I love you. I'm here for you. Go create the amazing, amazing life that you deserve.